time. For the chat box, it is open for introductions. Please let us know that you're here and name and organization you're with. All other times, though, the chat will be for PCEF staff only. Committee members, please raise your hand. And for the public, the only time we'll be taking comment from you is at 6:10 during public comment. The video, we're asking for only the committee members and presenters to have video on. Please mute your microphone. This meeting is being recorded and closed captioning is in effect, and you can see that in settings, and that will show subtitles. The agenda for today, as I said, is public comment will be at 6:10. At 6:20, we will have comments from the co-chairs. At 6:25, we'll have an initial discussion on the process for the second set of allocations. At 7 o'clock, we'll have a 10-minute break. We'll come back at 7:10 for discussion on, again, the process for the second set of allocations. And at 7:40, the committee will have a discussion with the related to work groups and subcommittees. The areas will be recruitment subcommittee. The work groups will relate to two of the strategic plans. One is the Strategic Program 8, Equitable Tree Canopy. The second is Strategic Program 15, that's the Federal Climate and Equity Funding Opportunities. And we will be closing out the meeting at 8 o'clock. So that is our agenda for today. So right now we'll go to introductions, and I'll start with folks that I see online. Maria, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Maria Sippin, PCEF committee member, they or she pronouns.
Alicia.
Good evening, Alicia Chapman, committee member, she, her pronouns.
Paul.
Good evening, Paul Lumley, committee member. I use he, him pronouns.
Robin.
Hello, Robin Wang, committee member, he, him.
Michael.
Michael Eden Hill, committee member, he, him.
Megan.
Hey folks, Megan Horst, she, her, co-chair.
Faith.
Good evening, everyone. Faith Graham, she, her, committee member.
Ramfis, I'll start with you in the room and then to Sam to introduce himself as well as staff.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. Ramfis Giantinovia Toro, committee member, him, he, him. That's from there.
Good evening, everyone. It's a rainy one for the first hybrid in a while. So it's good to see you all. Sam Barrasso, he, him, program manager, Portland Clean Energy Fund team. I'll send it to James and then Ciara.
Hi, everybody. James Valdez, he, him pronouns, PCEF staff.
Ciara Pressler, any pronoun, PCEF consultant.
All right, welcome everyone. And right now we'll move over to public comment and we'll have James Matois. And before James, if anyone else online would like to have time for public comment, please raise your hand. If you're joining by phone, please use *9 and to express your interest in public comment. So James, turning it over to you and welcome tonight.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me and thank you for letting me speak this evening. My name is James Matoir and I'm making this public comment as a concerned member of our community, deeply invested in the equitable and just use of the Portland Clean Energy Fund. As you are all aware, PCEF was established with the goal of prioritizing communities of color, women, persons with disabilities, and the chronically underemployed. The original version of the Portland Clean Energy Fund that hundreds of advocates worked tirelessly to lobby for reflects a commitment to environmental justice, economic empowerment, and community resilience. While amendments and inadequate community engagement may have enabled the city to gain access to these funds, voters and community organizations remember PCEF's original intent, as it has been a beacon of hope for many who continue to be marginalized and disproportionately impacted by climate change. PCEF has allowed members of Portland's BIPOC community, and particularly its Black community, an opportunity to address years of shortcomings in housing stock, going back to the destruction of Vanport and continuing through the gentrification of Northeast Portland's Black community. The message that diverting these funds for reasons other than what voters in 2018 passed is a disheartening one. It sends the message that even if you legally vote and win to have something help your community become healthy and resilient, it can be taken away to serve communities it was not intended for. While the city is struggling with a deficit in its general fund, reallocating PCEF funds is misappropriation, deception, and yet another example of government removing trust from its constituents. This is why so many historically marginalized communities do not trust the city to meet their needs. PCEF's original allocation should be preserved to not only benefit frontline communities, but be led by our communities as intended. PCEF was not created to support the city's general fund or prevent layoffs. If the city is in such dire budget constraints, the city should be partnering directly with community-based organizations to initiate their proposals. The city should be required to go through the same process for their proposals, if not more detailed, given the millions proposed for allocation. PCEF funds to date have supported numerous community organizations helping to provide livable wages, workforce development, direct action toward resiliency, and planning initiatives for frontline communities. Yet hundreds were also rejected from funding. The city should be working to support and develop those organizations who were not able to secure PCEF funding in last year's funding cycles, rather than divert funding to city bureaus who have historically failed to meet both racial and climate action goals on behalf of our communities. I urge you as PCEF staff and committee who work directly with city representatives to take a steadfast stand in preserving the integrity of the Portland Clean Energy Fund. It is vital that the funds are not diverted to projects or initiatives that do not align with the core principles and objectives for the Portland Clean Energy Fund. Our community's trust in this initiative is built on the promise that it will bring positive change to those who are most vulnerable in the faces of climate change. Ensuring PCEF's success is not only a benefit to our city, but also a model that other communities nationwide are looking towards. I mention this as I have had other cities contact me directly as they would like to replicate the successes they've seen come out of PCEF, but also let me know they are watching to see how these allocations will be handled, as they will look to not make the same mistakes on behalf of their constituents. Your leadership and commitment to the original vision of the Portland Clean Energy Fund will ensure that our community remains on the path towards a more equitable and sustainable future. Thank you for your attention in this matter, and I trust that you will act in the best interests of our community and constituent voters. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Now we'll have Jason Skipton.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for your time and consideration in regards to investing in our community with additional PCEF funds. So my name is Jason. I'm honored to work with a community-based organization called Growing Gardens. I've been doing this work now in community-led regenerative agriculture projects for the past 14 years. I'm also part of a collaboration with a group of over 20 organizations that represent thousands of Portlanders, most of which are disproportionately negatively impacted by climate change and represent PCEF priority populations. So a few things to consider for this meeting, especially after the last two that were held, to invest the extra $540 million in the PCEF fund. I'll be honest, it's difficult to hear that the nonprofit sector doesn't, can't, or isn't ready to receive more funding, and that we should be okay with the $200 million over the next 5 years that were originally allocated. We as a nonprofit sector have been historically underfunded, and precisely the reason why PCEF led with supporting nonprofits to shift this exact narrative. To not increase funding to nonprofits perpetuates the unfortunate narrative that we should continue to be underfunded and to do more with less. What we are proposing, with support from you all tonight, is increased funding in categories that are considered to be competitive. For example, the one in workforce development around youth education and exposure, and any other funding categories that are competitive to make sure that applications receive funding that come in RFP3 because there is additional funds to fund that work. Increase funding in regenerative agriculture as a holistic sector in general, increasing fund for regenerative agriculture. And in addition to that is don't let the number of applications received determine the demand. Specifically in regenerative agriculture, we were capped at $1 million, the maximum amount per grant over a 5-year period. Reminding you all that that's down from $10 million of what we could apply for in RFP2. Again, continuing that narrative of reducing funding. As an organization, we could have applied for 6 times the amount of funding, but didn't have the opportunity to do that in RFP3. To rely just on applications received is a false sense of the demand. This is an artificially deflated number and does not reflect the true demand that is in our community. I would also increase funding year over year, as in graduated funding. Looking at the caps, we could apply for $1 million over 5 years, but the cost to do our work increases and are tied to PCEF living wage funding each year. So what we could do in year 1 of the funding is vastly different than what we can do in year 5. I would also increase regenerative agriculture general operating funding from a cap of $100,000 a year to $500,000 a year in direct response to what I mentioned prior, and the graduated funding year over year. Tonight, right, like there's been fast motion, fast movement. Have that same sense of urgency with the nonprofit sector, with us, the community. Tonight is an opportunity to invest in the nonprofit sector and create a food system that is nourished, cared for, and funded. I would be happy to have follow-up meetings and provide any more information to you all who would be interested to chat further. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jason. At this time, I'll ask that the co-chairs respond to public comment or just comments in general. Ramfis, why don't we start with you?
Just want to thank both testimonies today. Just want to recognize, I think, just the gravity and importance for both testimonies around just, again, centering PCEF principles, our core objectives. I think we hear that loud and clear, and just the importance of continuing to balance, I think, the interests here for nonprofits and the role for nonprofits in a lot of the work that we do. So I appreciate both of these testimonies, and I think as we deliberate today and what next steps we take for the PCEF program, I think this has been very valuable testimony, as have the other testimonies we've heard from other community organizations in the past few weeks. So appreciate both comments.
Megan?
I think we maybe have, is Candace also signed up for public testimony?
That's what I was just getting. I just noticed that, Megan. So Candace, do you have a public comment that you'd like to share?
Hello, committee. Yes. Sorry, I raised my hand last minute as I decided last minute to say something. But hi, I'm Candace Avalos, she, her pronouns. I'm the executive director of Verde. I agree with the 2 comments prior as it relates to how we're spending PCEF dollars. So I'm not going to harp on that, just say ditto. The other thing I wanted to mention, though, as a nonprofit who has partnered with PCEF over the years, and you know, I participated in the CBO capacity building committee last summer. One thing that I shared there that I just wanted to share directly with you all, especially coming off the heels of submitting our PCEF application today, is I really would encourage you all to look at some kind of re-granting process to ease some of the pressure and logistical bureaucracy of reapplying for dollars that we have already received from PCEF and have successfully been implementing for many years. That process is very cumbersome. And in addition to my concerns for the dwindling number of dollars that are going to these different CBOs, I think the time is now to ensure that partners that you have secured over the years can continue to easily engage with you and reapply for dollars to continue the impactful programming we're doing in the community. So it's something I mentioned a couple of times throughout various committees that I have served on, but I just wanted to bring that to light today, especially as, you know, we were navigating the application and just thinking there has to be an opportunity to make it easier for CBOs to continue the work that we've partnered with PCEF on. So just wanted to put that into the record. Appreciate all of you for all of your hard work, and thank you.
Thank you, Candace. I see Babs' hand is up for public comment, I believe.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so I did not sign up ahead of time. However, I'm speaking only for myself. I'm 75 and a half years old and have lived in Portland my entire life. I have followed PCEF and have my own thoughts. However, our time is limited. So what I want to say for tonight is I agree 110% with the three people who have spoken before me. And I want to thank them, all three of them, including Ms. Avalos, for their continued commitment to making our city a better place for all of us. Thank you so much. That's all.
Thank you, Babs. Megan, I'll start with you, and then Ranfis, if you have any follow-up, we'll go back to you after Megan.
Yeah, thanks. And just to be clear, Tracy, on agenda, this is just a moment for us to react to public comment, right? Because we'll have a different moment for more broad comments.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm just clarifying. And fellow committee members, it's not only Ranfis and I, we just ask for time when we receive public testimony to have at least a few moments of committee time to acknowledge and reflect upon it, because in the past we haven't done that. And so it was just an ad. So this isn't limited to Ranfis and I. But I just echo Ranfis's point as co-chair. I really appreciate those of community members who've made the time to be here tonight on this meeting. We do hear you. Like I think all of us community members take our role seriously as doing the best we can to be to be volunteer advisory boards, to be a watchdog of sorts of PCEF. And so hearing from you helps us understand kind of the way community members are hearing about and understanding changes being proposed. Also some of the details of how you're experiencing the RFP process and actual rollout of granting. Like, because we're volunteer members, we don't always know these nitty-gritty details. So it is really an important thing. And, you know, I hear the call for more focus on community in this next round of deliberations. And I think that will be a big point of our deliberation and discussion tonight is funding to community-based orgs or to maybe bureaus and others in deep collaboration with community in different forms. So I hear that. And of course, as the Regina Ag advocate on PCEF, that's my role. I definitely hear the continued call about the limits that past RFPs have put on regenerative ag, and it is such a small funded area. So I really hope staff and us can have some proposals around fixing that oversight or gap. And I hear, you know, I also very much look forward to the call about what sort of interest we got in RFP3, but I also hear the comment that whatever we got was limited by the parameters we put out. So it shouldn't be our full assessment of what the community demand in this money is. So just, I'm hearing these comments and hope my fellow committee members are, you know, will take it all into account.
Ranfis?
Yeah, I'll just defer if there are other comments or feedback from the rest of the committee.
Paul?
Thank you. I want to thank the four folks who testified tonight. Their comments were heartfelt. I really feel deeply about the work we do, and their comments meant a lot to me. And I don't know if there's time on the agenda today for us to have a conversation about how we move forward, but I do want to start having conversations about what happened these last two meetings with the city's proposals, and how fast that went through, and such a simplified process, especially in comparison to what the community has gone through in their process for applying for funds that closed today. And I've heard from some folks who have complained to me directly that it is a very complicated process, very difficult to get these applications in. And there's also quite a bit of limitations at a time when we have quite a bit more funding. And so I would like to have a conversation about how we can relax some of the bureaucracy around how we are forcing the community to go through these very complicated application processes and start making it easier for the community to engage. I've heard from some folks from the community that are applying for these funds, but others who've said the community can't handle more funding. They can't apply for more funding. They don't have the capacity. I just don't believe that, because I believe that the process we've created has made it more difficult for them to participate in this program. So at some point, whether or not it's today or our next meeting, I believe we should start having an open conversation about this. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Oh, Alicia.
Thanks, Tracy. I just wanted to echo the feedback that I have also received from community members who have found the application to be, quote, difficult and onerous, so much work, and that they are frustrated that community is supposed to complete an application, that the city bureaus have not been held to the same standard. So I hear that throughout the public comments echoed as well. And I just wanted to highlight that sense of inequity from our community partners.
Other committee members? All right, we'll move on to the initial discussion of for the process for the second set of allocations.
Was this moment where we give co-chair comments?
Apologies, Tracy. I think this is where I think Megan, I think we had talked about the idea of Megan and Ramfis also just having additional space beyond the public comment to also provide comments. So I want to see if that's okay with you, Tracy. I'm looking to Megan and Ramfis to give me the nod that that's what you both were looking for.
Yeah, Ramfis, I went first last week. Last time, would you like to go first this time?
Happy to go first. My recollection's different, but I just want to just trying to meditate here on what's been said so far. I hope as we talk about this next steps, I want to make sure that we're doing justice with the feedback that we're hearing from many of the community organizations as well as the broader public. I think as we move forward, I think it's going to be really important that we prioritize and think about process and how that process will be reflective of our values. And then talk about timelines. What is the right timeline to make decisions? A timeline that makes sense for us as a committee composed of volunteers, as well as the timeline that makes sense for staff currently administering and stewarding our climate investment plans and applications. But also I think the timeline that makes sense for community to be responsive in towards the funding needs that we need to ensure these dollars are put into good action. So I think that's a tall order, but I'm looking forward to this conversation. I do want to sort of note, and curious to hear Megan's feedback on this as well. We have been doing the outreach to each of the commissioners, having these conversations around process and next steps. Like I think we've had a meeting so far with Commissioner Rubio's office, as well as Commissioner Ryan and MAP's office. We're still waiting to hear back from the mayor and Commissioner Gonzalez's office. But so far, I think, some of the feedback we provided and what we're hearing too is just an appreciation for thinking about process and next steps, and taking a timeline that makes sense for the committee. I want to be optimistic here that we still have, I think, in our charge to continue to develop a process that makes sense for us as a committee, take time with the funding decisions as we move forward, and do justice for a process that I think is important, that is reflective of our values. So I'm hopeful and optimistic for that, but I'll kick it over to you, Megan. Curious on your take as well on this.
Thanks, Ramfis. I'll say, I think the comments I prepared are from a slightly different angle, so maybe that's good. And sorry to not be there in person. I teach on campus at Portland State on Thursdays, so can't make it. And also another queuing up a conversation that I'd love to have with committee sometime soon is getting into a cadence where we maybe have intentional in-person and intentional online space so that we actually do get together in person sometimes, but like that it's not a burden. So just kind of queuing that up. But on kind of more PCEF things, I mean, I already responded to public comment a little bit, but just to the committee, I hope, we did feel a lot of pressure to go through really fast deliberations. I think many of us expressed a lot of frustration with that. And I still hope, though, that today we're feeling pretty good about what we were able to do in that context. I think we had a lot of really rigorous deliberation. I think that we were able to push and transform city funding a bit. So I'm feeling somewhat positive about some aspects of our past decision making. And while I totally hear a lot of the feedback and had some of my own concerns about city bureaus, I am optimistic that a lot of those programs are going to directly benefit our PCEF priority communities, and transform how city works so that it has more of a PCEF lens on what it does. So I remain hopeful about that, especially with the parameters that we put into place through our rigorous deliberations. So all that said, I don't want to continue that fast pace or do that repeat version of that process, but I do remain a little bit hopeful. And another comment is I hope, after our decision making and after some announcements around potential use of the interest generated on PCEF, a lot of press reached out to me and perhaps other members for comments. So I hope, part as co-chairs, part of our role is to be the first responders to press requests. And I hope you all find that I'm trying to speak when possible for what I feel is reflective of the committee. So, if you have input on that, I'm happy to hear, but hopefully you've seen my comments in the various articles written, and that they're a synopsis of our experience that yes, we both felt some pressure with fast deliberation and we felt decent about what we funded. And I was asked directly about the interest question, and I said, frankly, the committee has not heard about this yet or had time to deliberate. So hopefully we have time to do that tonight. So that was a bit of a surprise question because I didn't see that coming. And then a couple other things. We faced a lot of pressure in the last few months meetings, I should say, to make some decisions. And, candidly, the pressure came from a few different directions. And one was from this sort of threat, I suppose, that if we didn't make some decisions, the commissioners would possibly do so on their own. And so I just, want to tell that back to our stakeholders, that is part of our reason for acting in urgency. And I hope we can reduce the gas, I hope our past decisions, but I also hope we can steer the ship a bit more as a committee and say, yes, we have some remaining unallocated funds, and we're going to be deliberate and thoughtful about that and not just responding to pressure. So that's where I hope we can lead this conversation tonight, taking a lot of the public input and reactions we're having. And a couple other things. I do really want to hear more from staff about this. I don't know if it's a shared narrative, but there's been expressions about capacity of nonprofits to take more money. And I think that's a really important thing for us to hear and deliberate more about as a committee. Like, what's the truth there? Is it a staff capacity issue, and can that be resolved? Is it, I guess we'll learn more from RFP3 if there is interest in orgs. But I want to understand that more because that seems really important to us in our decision-making processes. I have been an advocate in the last few meetings for considering expanding funding in the community responsive grants as part of our deliberations. And I think that it's just important information I don't yet have as to why is there more capacity? I want to know that. And I want to know any of the other kind of contextual factors there. just two more comments, sorry. Or actually, I already said the slow down one. And, you know, community has come up a lot in the last few, I think our last meeting and in our conversations with commissioners and in the public. I think it's pretty clear to me that there's a lot of different meanings of the word community out there. And I think maybe we as a committee need to deliberate more about what do we mean when we do community-based work. On the one hand, yes, we fund community responsive grants that go directly to community-based orgs. And then we push city bureaus to do work that directly benefits PCEF priority communities and or that hires workforce and contractors. So I think all of our funding to date has prioritized community. I hope that's how the public, I hope that's the impact. But I think there's this nugget for us to deal with of like, do we need to further define that? And I really hope future funding can push more collaborative efforts among community orgs, community members directly, and city agencies. We've seen some funding areas where that's been true. And I think there's opportunity for kind of more collaborative, productive healing, forward-thinking collaboration that has PCEF values. So those are just some of my opening comments about, I hope we can have a slow, deliberate conversation and steer the ship more.
All right, if there aren't any additional co-chair comments, we'll move on to the next section of the meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tracy. So I think just before we move into the discussion on the process for, you know, future allocations, the second set of allocations, I mean, just to acknowledge both everything that's been said by committee members, without a doubt, as we've shared, and for folks that are just chiming in, this process was incredibly far from ideal, and it was substantially driven by the budget in this moment that we've been in, where, and while with everyone is entirely accurate that the origin of PCEF was to invest in community-based organizations to do climate work for groups that have been historically excluded, our reality, PCEF's reality has changed, and that's put a lot of different elements that we've had to consider on the table for us, including obviously the fact that our funding forecast and our revenues are substantially larger than originally projected. So I know that, you know, we've talked about this at length in the past several meetings, and I just wanted to name that again, that this we're going to continue to evolve, and it's important as a staff that we continue to evolve. We name our barriers, our challenges, and you all ask those critical questions on what is the original intent, and what does that evolution look like as some of our underlying factors do change. And so I think we've outlined some of those elements here as part of the discussion for the second set of allocations, and we just want to level set, provide some context so that you all do have that productive discussion, as that's the primary focus for this meeting. And I know towards the end we'll chat a little bit about other committee roles and assignments. So first, just to kind of bring us to our schedule, you know, we feel remiss in that we updated our bylaws, or your bylaws, last August with the expectation that we would scale back the number of meetings and we'd be at meetings every other month. And as you can see, we've increased the meeting frequency substantially in the past short while. And so we have another meeting on February 28th, 2 weeks from yesterday, and then a meeting in March 21st, and this is back to our regular cadence, and then a meeting in May. And so depending on the discussion today, I know something we'll come back to is just how does it fit within the existing schedule? Do we need to schedule additional meetings, and whatnot? And then for context, as we move into this conversation, just going to ground you all in some of the budget, as that has been the driver for the sequencing of the conversations you all have been having, and the pressure that you all have received. So as a lot of our work and the work that you all did and the recommendations you made a couple weeks ago certainly are feeding into the Bureau's requested budgets. So the budgets that our bureaus are requesting. And I will just maybe take that moment to say, it has been really, we have begun to have those productive conversations around how do we add on, do better in these projects? How do we make sure some of the workforce, the equity contracting criteria can be better? And we're excited to bring that back to you all in April and May. But sort of the next sort of timeline for you all to keep in mind as you have your conversation is that leading up to the mayor's proposed budget, we expect to be released in that early May. So those days may not be entirely precise, but early May. There are going to be a couple other sequence of steps that are going to happen. The next will be that, and if we're attempting to strike that timeline for the mayor's proposed budget for the following year, so meaning that you want to get additional items in there, consider additional items for the mayor's proposed budget, the timeline for you all to make that time would be April 11th. That'd be the deadline in order to make recommendations for inclusion into the mayor's proposed budget. In late April, we do expect an economic forecast update for the various cities' funds, including PCEF. So that's the cadence. It's going to be December and April. And then in June, we expect the council to adopt the next year's fiscal budget. And then the next sort of window of opportunity in terms of making adjustments to existing budgets, given the reality we're working with, is going to be the fall budget monitoring process, or the fall bump as it's known within the city. And that really, in earnest, those requests come through and begin being packaged in September is when we anticipate that happening. So that's just to contextualize for you all, as you all hear different ideas, as we've been continuing to hear different ideas. I want you all to kind of keep, those are going to be some of the dates that are going to be relevant for this conversation and for you all to think about. Any questions about those dates?
Megan?
Maybe Paul and I have the same question. And Sam, maybe you're going to say this on the next slide. But okay, we've got these dates. Can you tell us, I asked you directly last week, I think, we have 160 million left in our fund, not counting the interest, which is another conversation. And then maybe some possible more coming in April, depending on how the forecast projections. But what Peter said suggests there'll be more. Do we have to decide something by, like, is April our, tell us, like, what's the legal requirement? Can we say, we're going to wait, we're going to do a little bit of process, we'll decide by September because that's when we should make an amendment to this CIP? Like, can you just tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, it's the April deadline is if there's an idea, a proposal, something on the table that you want to consider, and that proposal is intended for the fiscal year beginning July 1st of 24, then that April deadline is going to be the deadline you need to hit. So if it's something that's if it's an activity we want to fund that takes place over the course of the entire fiscal year, you're going, in order to hit the various budget deadlines, which ultimately are, driven by state requirements, you would need to hit April. But that is, in terms of you all making a recommendation, that is your discretion. And I know that I want to acknowledge those pressures that you all certainly felt were very real, and we responded to them. And yet we know that we continue to see requests for additional funding. So if you want to consider them for the next fiscal year, April will be the timeline. Then there are those other dates, and I mentioned here and put that on the calendar, is just September, and that's really when the proposals or the adjustments are due, and that's when we make tweaks. So that's generally, in terms of the city budget process, that's when we reconcile the previous year's expenditures, when we carry over funding, other things like that. So there are a couple other windows, but when you're thinking about overall programming and looking at the scale in the entirety of the year, it would be, if you're looking at a year's worth of programming, you would be striking and aiming for getting a recommendation in prior to that April date. So the city can package it up and get it into the mayor's proposed budget.
Paul?
Thank you. And Megan's correct. That was where I was heading with my questions. But I also want to work backwards from April 11th now that we have that clarification. So looking at the schedule here, March 21 is our last PCEF meeting before April 11. So I'm assuming that if we wanted to take action to submit something for the city to fund as a new allocation of funding, then I'm assuming that March 21 would be our decision-making meeting on that. Would that be correct, Sam?
Without another, in order to hit the next fiscal year's budget, correct, without another meeting in place. And so I think that's precisely why I want to make sure you all see these dates here, so that as you think about the process you all want to entertain, that there'd be a recognition that if we were to go about that, we would need to reach out to you all and either schedule more meetings or rely exactly on these dates here, in which case that March 21st date would be the last date before that April.
I can't speak for the other committee members, obviously, but I am interested in pursuing another allocation of funding out to the community. I would like to have that conversation at some point, how we schedule that so we can do something very deliberative and not miss a deadline here. Thank you.
Michael?
So I'm a little the April 11th for final submissions is only for that's not for like if we want to allocate the 185 million to community organizations. That's if we want to allocate it to city bureaus specifically, right? Or do we have to decide if we're going to add it to add that 185 million over the next 5 years, whatever that is, 40 million a year over the next 5 years. If we want to do that to community organizations, do we also have to decide that by April 11th and present that too?
No, you're asking a good thing. And once we start getting into budget land, I have to be careful. I think the quick and the simple answer is, Michael, you're correct that that's largely for city projects, city funded, city administered projects. There is, yes, a part of it that when we grant to our nonprofit organizations and move external funding, we still do need a budget for those resources as well. And so we have budgeted for the next, the current community responsive grant round that we are in. And we may need to make, and there are times where we need to make adjustments to those budgets. And so there's, if for instance, we do have not budgeted enough, we can reconcile some of that for our community responsive grants in the September or in the fall bump process. So I would say for the purposes of this conversation and that April 11th deadline, it primarily is for additional funding to city bureaus or city projects. That's how I'd be thinking about that deadline. Sorry. I see in the room, Tracy, we've got a question in the room. Apologies.
I don't want to like jump into any solutions, but it sounds like, I think this meeting would be a good time to sort of deliberate just timelines. Not to, I think, go against with what Paul suggested, but I'm open to conversations about what a process could look like for funding some community organizations. I know we've had some recommendations and asks from groups, but I think given the short turnaround here, I'd rather not be married to a April 11th and give the committee flexibility for a September fall bump for considering how we consider allocating, if not a major portion or the full portion of the rest of the funding. That can allow us time to create criteria for eligibility, how we would evaluate, but again, not to contradict or go against finding avenues to fund groups. My only concern is just the pace. The pace already thus far has been a challenge. And so I just want to sort of try to, I think, set a level of pace that I think will be enable us to do the due diligence and review while also kind of considering the speed of how we can actually get dollars out. So that's, I think, just kind of wanted to sort of float that, but again, not against what I think Paul's recommended so far.
Megan?
And I'm just going to ask another informational or clarifying question about all this. So this is our regular funds. Sam, can you also speak to the interest question? Several commissioners have proposals for using interest on PCEF, and I don't know enough about that. Like, I would have thought that was probably in our parameter to make recommendations on the same way other PCEF funds are. And then if that's true, and tell me more about that, is that part of this timeline?
What I would generally just say about that, and I will defer to the commissioner's office on some of those, is that generally speaking, and there are various rules that have historically, governed how interest moves, and it is, the city does have a pooled system of how they manage their funds, and then interest is subsequently allocated to each of the respective funds. In the past, our interest just gets lumped in with the rest of our funds, and that's part of what we've we've just considered it part of the sum, but it is an addition that comes in. It is an additional flow that does an additional line item, in addition to the clean energy surcharge revenues. It's an addition, and so those discussions beyond that are ultimately there. Those are I would defer to the commissioner's office and council on those discussions. But I just want to speak to what historically has happened there. That we don't separate that out. We haven't historically parsed it out that way.
And so when you say defer, what does that mean for us, like as a committee? Is there going to be a time for us to deliberate? Are we going to learn more? What does it mean to defer? I just don't understand.
I guess I think I want to respect and acknowledge that that is as the proposal on the use of interest is a proposal that our commissioner has made, and so any questions around that proposal, Megan, I would direct you to have that conversation directly with the commissioner's office. But we're happy in terms of if there's just questions around the legal elements of it, we're more than happy to host an executive session with the attorney so that you have better understanding around it. But in terms of the certainly the proposal to use PCEF's interest in other ways, I would direct those questions to the commissioner's office. I hope that helps. That's the best I can do there, Megan.
It does. What would be helpful to hear from committee members about, we could maybe fold that into our bigger conversation. I see Robin has a hand up, but I guess if committee members feel like this is a point we want to learn more about or engage with the commissioner on, in fact, multiple commissioners have had different proposals at this point, but we have not deliberated upon any of it. So yeah.
Robin?
Yeah, I would welcome a conversation with the city attorney. I have no idea what those rules are around interest, and we can talk round and round and round and round and make hypotheses and everything like that. But I would like to have a better understanding from a legal perspective, and not knowing the rules of the city, where that money falls, what bucket it falls into. So I would be interested, and it would be nice to get some clarity.
Okay. Got a hand here from Ranfis.
Ranfis?
Yeah, I want to hear more from committee members on this, but I do want to provide a recommendation here as well. I think Megan's question is really important, so I appreciate you flagging this, Megan. I think it sounds like having an executive session would be worthwhile, just to give, I think, the full committee good baseline information. I think as committee members, we should be well informed about the program and the context of the program. And it's been a while since I think we've actually done that. Additionally, I want to remind committee members what's in the code and what's been reaffirmed by council. In addition to making funding recommendations, we can also make recommendations to the policy and updates to the code. So there are, I imagine, things that when this initiative was first started, that there were questions or things we never considered or gray areas. So I think if there are things that are unclear about process, this might be a good use for a consideration for recommendations of the code alongside with funding recommendations. Again, I think we could probably additionally do that in reviewing some of our charter stuff and bylaws. But again, I just want to make sure our committee is fully well informed about what our role is, understanding the basic components of the code, and understanding what are we empowered to do as well. So I just appreciate, again, Megan, you flagging this conversation.
So what we'll do, and hearing that loud and clear, and maybe I should just have named this, I should acknowledge that a code up amendment is required in order to use the interest outside of PCEF's goals and objectives. And so I should have just flagged and named that. What we'll do is we'll follow up with committee members with a doodle poll, and we'll probably aim for just a few lunchtime windows. And we'll notice the meeting and whatnot because we do have to do that, but we'll set up, it's been a while since we've done an executive session where we've gotten legal advice, but we'll go ahead and we'll follow through and do that. And so just stay tuned for a doodle poll. And those that are interested in joining, please respond so that we can make that happen soon. Okay. So I think the top of the conversation and the questions that are being raised are perfect, and it's exactly right. And much of the content here is hopefully going to get us closer. But what we wanted to set the stage for, given in many ways the work that we've done on the climate investment plan, the work that we're currently doing on our third community responsive grants request for proposals, is setting the stage for how do we want to start as a group, as a committee, how do you all want to start thinking about those criteria? And so one thing we're as part of I don't want to minimize, there continues to be tremendous interest in PCEF, both within the city and regionally, whether it's our partners at Metro, the port, the county, the state. And so one element that's going to be important for you all as a group is to be able to communicate out. But I would encourage February 28th, the next meeting, what is the process? So we can start communicating folks, this is the process as we get all that interest and just channeling folks to understanding how they can get their various ideas or what are the various sideboards that you all are considering. And so I think that as far as this conversation, I think that's what we're encouraging you all to get to and think through, is being able to come out of your meeting next one in a couple of weeks from now with clarity on the process so that we can use that to communicate out to folks. And so as we move through the next series of slides and content and the discussion, and we'll come back to some of what, I think the topics and the ideas and suggestions that both Ramfis and Paul have raised, I think the things that you all are going to need to consider are really along these three sort of key questions. What are your metrics for prioritizing or determining allocations for programs or projects? And you're going to need to think through obviously the core requirements, the emissions reductions and community benefits, but particularly you're going to need to think through what are the other things, benefits to priority population, implementation capacity, readiness, the relationships with our existing programming that we've already approved, who is implementing, the scale, thinking through holistic developments potentially focused on geographic areas. That's something that we've done in piecemeal, focused on 82nd Avenue, but we know that there's been different topics and themes that have come up. And then coalitions and collaborations and how potentially to encourage those. This has been a topic that's come up over the years as we've done our community responsive grants, and yet this may be an opportunity to particularly call those sorts of things in, where you potentially call in collaborations between community-based organizations, government, labor, industry, and others. And then potentially framing that you may want to consider around city leadership that may be critical for broadly, globally, nationally, moving the ball on emissions reductions and lending a path forward, innovation and education in that same vein. Other things you may want to consider is what information do we already have in order to make sound recommendations? And then how do we move forward expeditiously while managing the integrity of the fund? Urgency, for numerous reasons, is always going to be there in some form, notwithstanding the fact that we are in a climate emergency. And so what does it mean to move forward expeditiously, but with integrity, as you all have raised numerous times? And so I'll leave you all with those questions before I move us forward into speaking to some of the climate investment plan, the climate emergency work plan, some of the other content and information that we do have, that we've gone through, that we can reference and build on.
Sam, it's 7 o'clock. Faith also has a question. So what I would like to propose is to have our 7 o'clock break, come back and have Faith raise her question, and then turn it back over to you.
You've got thumbs up from me here, Tracy.
All right, everyone, let's take a break and come back at 7:10. And Faith, you'll be first one on when we return.
Thanks, Tracy. Tracy. And I guess first I just wanted to thank my fellow committee members that I've been silent so far this meeting, and I just didn't want my silence to be interpreted as lack of concern. You've been asking really good questions and pointing to really good comments, and I just appreciate your diligence, and I'm right here with you. So thank you. Thanks for that. I do have a couple of seemingly unrelated logistic questions that will just help my brainstorming mind quiet down a little bit. And that's with respect to this current community responsive grant round and the next one. So this current round, can you remind me how much that entire, the allocation for this round is?
40,
Sam, and then I've got a couple of follow-up questions.
40 to 60 million.
As the total pot of funds available with this round.
For this current round, correct.
Okay, great. And what is the anticipated timeline for the next round of community responsive grants?
Approximately a year from now. So
okay.
That's the cycle we're trying to get back on.
Great. And is that the swiftest we can move?
I would say yes. I think I will name. There's a time when we had aspirations to go twice annual, and I think it's fair to say for the amount of work involved for everyone, but certainly on the staff side that that's about once a year is about right.
Okay, thank you. No, that's acceptable to me. I really appreciate just the honesty of that as well. And it's a lot of work, I understand, which is just now starting again for staff with respect to this one. So yeah. Thank you. Yep. So 40 to 60?
Correct.
Okay, and a year from now. Okay, thank you.
Yep. And I will say that there is a future case where we have a different conversation. I think the reality, and this has been the reality from the very get-go, is we've always been working from behind. And so as we've shared, we've got a heavy hiring plan, and yet hiring within the city is challenging. And so I think that we will continue to grow our staff and our capacity. And I think that this is a conversation we should certainly revisit in some years' time. But I think it's fair to say that given our current capacity and our outlook for our growth over the next few years, that doing more than once a year is going to be fairly challenging given the lift that it takes, unless we parse it out and divide it into different ways. So I think there's other ways in which you can parse out our community responsive grant solicitation and potentially focus on different sectors, different times. But I think those are going to have their pros and cons that would be worth discussion too.
Sure. Michael, I see your hand up and I put my hand down. I thought I was done. Can I ask one follow-up? Yeah, okay, thank you. Now, what was my follow-up? Dang it. When will we have a sense prior to our next meeting that's currently scheduled on February 28th of the size of the requests for this current round? Can you possibly have anything like that?
We should have. We think we're going to have that by tomorrow. Actually, I mean, it's going to be. Wow. We will put some asterisks around it in that it's. I'm sure we will not have done the initial eligibility review, quality control, quality assurance. We'll give you an initial number of just the volume of applications and the total dollar value associated with it. And then in some time, probably a month from now, we'll have a better sense of the actual what is now eligible out of that entire volume of applications. So we'll give you just the initial number of what we see, and we'll pull some queries tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yep. I'm done.
Michael?
Hey, I am going to ask also, what is in the CIP, what's the 5-year total for community responsive grants?
Oh, it is in, and I'm not going to know the exact number, but I'm going to say it's about 190 million is what it is in the CIP directed at community responsive grants.
And how much have we done for the city now for the next 5 years as of last week?
Oof, that number. So at least obviously last week, 382 million. Plus, if we step back and look at the climate investment plan, there was at least another 100 million associated with just strategic program 1 and strategic program 8 focused on tree canopy. And then there is the matched funds. So there's, Michael, I'd like to get back to you, but I think you can easily, I think it's fair to say at least 500 million. But I'll follow back up with we can follow back up with the exact number.
So it's like 500 plus the 382?
No, that 500 was inclusive of the 382. And I'm sure we're just missing, I mean, I know right now we know, let me not do math in public, but I'll say that it's going to be over 500. The exact number we'll follow up with. It'll be over 500, but yeah, the exact will follow up.
Thank you.
Paul?
Well, I just wanted to thank Michael for that excellent question. And Sam, perhaps you can just provide a budget synopsis for where we're at today and what our budget is. You can follow up by email on that. I would like to see that as well.
Okay, we'll do, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah, for everybody. Thank you.
Megan?
Yeah, I want to add on to that conversation. At the last meeting, I asked a question and you answered it partially, Sam, but I think Michael and Paul are asking for more detail, and I agree. You shared those slides last meeting that had like a breakdown by community org, city sector to a degree, and by type of funding area, like energy efficiency. But I think you all admitted that that was a rough cut. And I think it's interesting because sometimes money that goes to city agencies gets redistributed to community orgs. I know
you're getting faint, Megan.
Oh.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Oh, did you hear none of that?
Now we can hear you.
If you could repeat it, it was very distant.
Sorry, I moved my little microphone right in front of my mouth. Just following up on those requests. You did show us some of that last meeting, but I agree a more detailed analysis would be really helpful of the money to community orgs and city agencies, and also to the degree you can point out where some money is going through city agencies and it will go to community orgs, and I think that part's like, it would just be really helpful for us to be frank and honest and open with that. So, but I think that's a part that's hard to tease out, and I would love your effort in doing that.
Yeah, Megan, what we'll do is we can follow back up with just a couple tables and probably some narrative. I mean, it is hard because we can say, for instance, Strategic Program 1 focused on affordable housing. Nearly all of that funding is going out to community-based organizations and affordable housing developers. We could say similarly on our equitable tree canopy, that's about, and we know what portion of that is going to go towards the city administering and managing the tree canopy efforts. And then we can give some ballpark of what we think is going to go externally, but to what extent community does that versus contractors, that's where it gets a little tougher. So I think we can provide some narrative of what we see as being the city, but I'd say in many of these instances, the vast majority of the resources will be going externally. It's a question of whether externally to contractors to administer it or to community and so forth. So we'll provide some narrative. I suspect it will be inadequate, but we will provide some narrative with those numbers and then more clear numbers where this is at least administered by the city versus some of the programming is, it's to be determined based on the RFPs that we put out there.
Maria?
Thanks for your patience. Taking me a while to unmute and mute. I'm in a lab at the basement of one of PSU's buildings, so I hope you can hear me. I remember last year, I think in November, we had a PCEF meeting where you had guest presenters from the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, and they also presented about participatory budgeting as like one accountability tool, to my delight, of course. So I'd really love for us to consider that as one of the mechanisms for dealing with the PCEF funds that we know of now, but also for when we have revenue that exceeds our expectations and our calculations, and how can we flexibly allocate more resources to community where they can respond fully and meaningfully to some of PCEF's changes in revenue, and to make sure they don't get left out of that. But I'm excited for thinking about our metrics, for prioritizing, and new ways of expanding how we make allocations with community in mind.
Oh, we got a question in the room.
I was just going to ask if there were any questions in the room.
Yeah, I'll chime in. I just want to maybe just piggyback here on Maria's comments. I think this is a good maybe opportunity to revisit and see how we could rethink our approach. So like when I look at this slide, it made sense at a certain time and framework as we were thinking about approaches, but maybe there is a good time to take a step back and think about what is the opportunity to rethink our approach for how we make investments. Like, should we be thinking about metrics and how we prioritize investments? So I think that's just more of a question, but I think it'd be a great opportunity, in addition to what Maria offered, even like inviting maybe say Department of Energy, federal grants, or thinking about, hey, how do we promote coalition building between government, community groups to rethink about our approaches on reducing emissions, whether it's in energy, buildings, even industrial uses. Like, I think there's opportunities to learn. I think if I recall correctly, in a check-in with Katie and Sam, folks pointed out that Denver has a program that it might be an opportunity for us as a committee just rethink our approach for investments and learn from others. But just taking another step back, we're just at a critical time period in terms of just the climate urgency and the historical investments right now that we see from the federal level. Like, are there things that we can do as a committee to push both government and community groups together to build the definition of community? When I think we've kind of just reflecting on some of our conversations, like, it is clear that we are operating on different definitions of community. And part of that, I think, is rooted in harm and historical disparities. And so when I hear about the potential for PCEF to be a beacon, I wonder what can we do, whether it's in a form of, say, a challenge grant or promoting coalitions to come together in an application. Are there things that we can do to think big and bigger? So I just want to offer that. Like, is there an opportunity here for us to learn, to take a step back? And is there a way that we can use this funding to challenge groups to rethink? Again, like, I'm supportive of what I've heard so far of how we could find opportunities to experiment with, say, participatory budgeting or investing already with some of our community organizations that have received funding in the past. But I think it's a good question for us to think, like, what can we learn? What can we do that can be strategic? And then how can we push for definition of community? Because I think there's an opportunity, hopefully through PCEF funding, to be a beacon and to do some healing here. So I like where the conversation is going. I just kind of just piggyback on what Maria just shared.
Paul?
Excellent suggestions. I'd like to change the subject a little bit. And I see the slide here about February 28th. I can't be at this meeting because it overlaps with my board meeting. But I talked about this a little bit earlier tonight, that I am very interested in a concerted effort to streamline our process of how people apply for funding, how they process in the grants application process, and even how the implementation process moves forward. Because I've heard from the community, and even my own experience when I was over at NEA, that this process is so onerous and so difficult to work with that it makes it almost impossible to be successful. And for the lucky few who get through, they are frustrated about the bureaucracy. So, and I heard Sam say earlier that they have a capacity issue. And why aren't we asking for all this information? Why are we making this process so difficult? Can we streamline it so that make it easier on staff so we can move resources into the community? Can we make it easier for people to do what we're talking about here tonight, which is to be collaborative and come together with really creative solutions? But this is a really difficult program to participate in. So I know there's going to be a conversation later tonight about committees and who wants to join a committee, but I'm interested in a committee. I would join a committee if we could streamline this process and make it easier for community to participate in. I'd be up for that. I don't know if anybody else is, but or maybe if we're not going to form an official committee, I'd be happy to sit down with some PCEF participants and see and hear from them directly what their experiences are and bring that back to the city and find out ways that we can make this an easier program to participate in. Thank you.
Paul, I have a clarifying question. Is your questions and comments directed towards Sam? Because if so, I would like Sam to respond before I move on to other members who have their hand up.
It could be Sam or any other committee member. This is a conversation with all of us about whether or not there's interest in pursuing this, because I think it'll be easier for us, easier for staff, and easier for community to participate in. But yeah, we can start with Sam, and if anybody else wants to jump in, but I do see other hands up too. Thank you.
I think let me maybe just jump in first, maybe if this addresses. I think we're more than happy. I think that it's to talk through and work through our application. I think we're certainly happy to spend some time working through the why, the what, how we've designed it, sort of what we were attempting to get at in terms of elevating and articulating the different benefits within projects and being able to parse out and evaluate those. So and then we are happy to speak through sort of what have been the challenges where we're seeing some of those challenges both at the application stage and then certainly afterwards on the implementation side. I think that's a worthwhile discussion, as there is certainly always room for improvement. And yet I think, PCEF is certainly, I want to acknowledge a big part of PCEF's creation has been the fact that the groups that we are investing in have not been historically invested in to do this work. And so there is an inherent element of this, which means that there's a lot of learning that is collectively happening. And that learning needs to continue to happen. We're absolutely committed to doing that and committed to seeing and growing the scale of resources growing to community over time. And we're happy to just talk through what are those growing pains? What does that look like on our side as staff administering and supporting these projects? And then what are some of our observations around where we're seeing challenges for our nonprofit partners implementing projects or going through our applications?
Robin?
Yeah, I just want to comment that, for me, there's a disconnect happening here, and, I look back 2-3 years ago and I remember us as a committee spending a huge amount of time simplifying the process. And I think, yes, it was far from perfect, but I thought, we were pretty satisfied with, how we ended up things, which is the current application process. And I remember there was meetings where, we simplified questions or we eliminated questions because we didn't think it was needed, or it was just, raising the bar too high. So, for me, I would be very curious to better understand the disconnect, and get some of that feedback. So I'm not questioning, but I want to better understand, the disconnect that's happening.
Megan?
Yeah, my comments in a little bit of a different direction. So, but I appreciate all this about the community RFP process. So I do hope we can flag that for a robust committee discussion soon, and maybe hear from an org or two directly about their experience, look at the application again. I was on a few review panels, but it's been a while, and I remember I had quite a bit of feedback for how it could be easier and better for the regenerative ag green infrastructure one, and I don't know if that was implemented. I don't really know what happened. So I definitely think it's time, alongside lots of other things, right? But the comment I raised my hand to make really jumps more off of comments Ranfis and Maria and maybe some other folks were making around sort of the remaining money we have to allocate or make some decisions on. And, I really appreciate a lot of the spirit we're talking about being deliberative and slow, re-examining the interest in the CIP to see about boosting. And on this whole spirit of collaboration, I do want to share, I think this is a huge opportunity. I just want to share from the regenerative ag perspective, for example, and maybe it's because of the low amounts of funding that Jason has described a few different times, but PCEF has not had a transformative effect on creating a coalition in that space. It's led to almost a fighting amongst orgs for what they see as a very small amount of money, and that's a real bump. At least that's my perception. I'm one I'm one player in that world. And I think maybe this is an opportunity to think about how PCEF funds could push collaboration and cross-pollination and coalition building, maybe in a few specific sectors, maybe among both nonprofits and city and other entities, I'm not sure, but like, I guess that's one part of our funding model, the community, that's a weakness of the community responsive grant model, is it is a competitive process that basically pits orgs against each other, possibly. And so I wonder if there's opportunity for us to think about that differently with this, perhaps a little bit of extra. And I should say, I think some of our funding does promote a more collaborative approach. My understanding is the Equitable Tree Canopy one, for example, is one that's really promoting more of a coalition, an organized approach to spending the money, and hopefully having much more of an obvious citywide impact, like a big impact. So I think that's a model that could possibly inform other approaches.
Ramphis, and after Ramphis, we'll move on to the slide and look at the questions that Sam has proposed to the committee.
Yeah, I like where this conversation's been going. I think maybe just to build on Megan's last point, like I think I think we have an opportunity here. Like maybe what I'm seeing here with this just opportunity here with this funding is to rethink some of these and promote partnerships and coalitions. Like I think we've so far been talking about nonprofits and city agencies, but I think, are there things that we could do that's smarter? Like, are there ways to pull in entities that can also add value into a coalition approach? So like, how do we think about workforce? Could we think about workforce that's bringing in say like Department of Labor? Are there ways that we can think about regenerative agriculture that's inclusive of schools? Are there things that we can achieve bigger wins together? So I think that's kind of, I think just another opportunity. Paul, I think maybe to your point, like I think maybe if this might be an opportunity to figure out a different approach to the application. Like I think the way we've done it, it's not. I hear a lot of institutions are like, this is how we've always done it. This is why we should be married to this process. But we might have an opportunity to rethink this or have a learned lesson of how we could approach it differently. And, I think to your question or the point in the comment you made earlier here on, sorry, I think maybe it was Robin, around the conversation we've had on the application process. I think as a committee, I agree. We've had these conversations. We all also had new members come in. And so I think we should, I would hope we're always creating the space and opportunity for this program to evolve. But I just want to recognize, like, I think we have a full new set of committee members. So I think it is a good time to reflect what were those changes we've made, the rationale. I think if we're going to approach this, and I'll stop talking here, but if we're going to approach things as how we can make things easier or more streamlined, I think we still need to have a measure of what is that measure of due diligence to steward these funds. But I hope we could tackle all this together. I don't know about joining another subcommittee, but I think this is at least a good endeavor to find ways to rethink this from a community standpoint.
All right, Sam, I'm going to turn it back to you for the committee work group and subcommittees.
Okay, let me walk you all through it. Maybe just, as I and what I think I prompted, and the discussion's been happening here, what I wanted to prompt in this, and I'm going to just fly through the slides here so you all can reflect on them in your own time, is, it is what information do we already have to make those recommendations? How can we move forward expeditiously while managing the integrity of the fund? And so I just as a, reminder, folks, we went through a 9-month plus process in order to come to the recommendations around the climate investment plan that were guided with an equity and climate framework that we're happy to both dust off. It has not been that long, but was ultimately, centered on community, that featured a lot of robust both community input, expert input, public stakeholder, government input, but the core sort of focus of it was how do we most directly serve communities. So you see a lot of the programming there is focused on individual benefits to our priority populations. And so that was the climate investment plan. And so I think as we move forward, I want to make sure folks are both, grounding in the work that happened there. And then the fact that there were layers of feedback, experts, community input, briefings with you all, as well as both our youth and environmental justice panel that did a more holistic review of the plan. And so we do have a whole set of both comments early in the plan, on our preliminary draft and our full draft, that are all online, that we're happy to point you all to as you all think about, and review that and kind of get a feel for that. Because I think in many ways this was taking all that feedback and packaging it up into the CIP. And then I'll turn you all and just acknowledge that we also have our climate emergency work plan, which is the city's work plan around how it is going to address the city's, these various sources of emissions, as part of the city's obligations that it needs to follow through on to get to our net zero by 2050 goals. And so this is another body, another document that it is, I think, a worthwhile product to review, to internalize and capture. What are we working on as part of city entities, many of which were now captured and being funded as part of the most recent funding recommendation. And so this is just another set of information, another resource for you all to look to as we think about how we move forward. And then, I think just some process considerations that, it's going to be important for you all to think about and conversations to happen over the coming couple of weeks is just, yes, there are near-term budget deadlines for 24-25 fiscal year. There are going to be absolutely opportunities to expand on programming within the climate investment plan that is doing well. A lot of those early outcomes, it will take time to tease that out. And so what does it mean to create the space to lean into and further support those that are working well? I think obviously we've talked about implementation capacity. There will be just the sequencing. How do we work through this? We've just gone through one. How do we work through another set of recommendation? The council taking those recommendations, and then what does it mean to deal with any balance of funds? And how do you all want to think about ultimately you all will make a recommendation, council will adopt, amend, or reject a recommendation, and that will result in a balance of funds that you all will need to consider again. How you want to then subsequently call in proposals, evaluate them, and then recommend them. We've gone through this before, but I know each time as we talk about different sectors, as there is an evolution in the way you all approach the work, as we've addressed different communities, that we may want to approach these differently and make adjustments to these. And then we did draft initial options for you all to consider, and you all immediately went into the conversation. So that is on me about when we first set those initial questions. I think it was really framing questions and the discussion happened. But, these were initial options to kind of give you two anchor points, and then the middle option around, certainly you can solicit proposals with the intent to allocate those remaining funds, $158 million, in time for the mayor's proposed budget. But that's a rapid timeline. It will be a narrower window for proposal submissions. So that means you'll be accepting proposals that are largely understood, developed, supports, but it does support earlier climate actions while giving the space and time for other programs to roll out, assuming that readiness is one of the core criteria and maybe less inclusive. Then your option 2 is to potentially solicit proposals with intent to allocate a portion of that funding in time for the mayor's proposed budget. It's fast, narrow timeline, but it supports, again, that early climate action, while the remaining programs, while giving space for the remaining CIP programs to roll out. And it creates a subsequent process that may be responsive to feedback from RFP 3 and other community collaboration. And then 3, which you all have already begun to discuss, is developing a process that supports more collaborative proposals in time for the fall bump. Longer timeline creates more opportunity for collaboration, larger forum projects, and potentially more inclusiveness around organizations, projects, ideas, and potentially gives us the space, you all the space, to be more responsive to feedback from RFP number 3 review process, as we expect to start sharing out what we're seeing out of that towards May and June. So those are sort of just some anchoring things for you all to think about in this discussion. Tracy, I'd love to give it maybe, if we can, about another 5 minutes or so, because I'm tracking that. I know that getting further in getting to a place of where you all are landing for your process is going to be critical for the 28th. And so I'd love to see if there are, just now that sharing sort of these slides, if there are any reflections on this, if this jogs anything else, or any other ideas folks want to talk through. And then I want to make sure we certainly do spend at least 10 minutes talking about the various committee assignments and roles that we also need to work through.
Faith?
Well, Tracy and Sam, I wonder, just a process suggestion. Why don't you go around, and limit people to 30 seconds or something, just to share the reflections on that. That's just a process suggestion.
I will look to Tracy. I support that.
It's a committee decision. I can work on 30 seconds. I don't know if the committee can.
Let's do it. And you start us, Faith. You have the mic.
Oh, dang it. Okay. I'm all for this being community based funding. We've given a lot to city, and it would be great if there were collaborations that came in by application with city and community-based organizations. And so I'm more in line with option 3 as that's where I am.
Robin.
Yeah, I see no rush, no need to rush anything. The part of the reason why we're in this pickle is because, we're dealing with kind of unclaimed funds. And so the first person who suggests what to do with these unclaimed funds, kind of puts a stake in the ground. And that sets the timeline that, we're rushed. So I'm going to propose that, in addition to whatever we talk about, maybe, the process of amending the CIP from, 750 to whatever we added 2 weeks ago, and making, amending the CIP to be 1.5 billion or even 2 billion. And so therefore that money's claimed, right? And if there's more money, then, we kind of decide where in this CIP we're going to spend the money. But that way there's already, there's already a commitment to this money if the funds come along. And I just want to add that, we've been also very fortunate that the forecast has always been higher than every subsequent review period. But I think we also need to anticipate that there will one day be forecasts that will be lower. And, we're going to need to have a process to identify what happens, what gets cut when that happens. So let's not lose sight of the fact that, we need to kind of figure out the process for less money when that happens.
Megan?
Yeah, I'm resonating with Faith's and Robin's comments, and I don't think I have anything else to add right now.
Paul?
I'm liking option 3, like Faith mentioned. I totally support Robin's comments about slowing down, taking some time, which is why earlier tonight I proposed that we set aside some more funding for the community, because I'm afraid that if we don't do something now, the city's going to come in and stake a claim for it. So I think your approach, Robin, of opening up the CIP is a smart one. I've hinted at it behind the scenes, talking to a few other members, and I know we just got it approved, but we also just ended up with a whole bunch more funding than we anticipated. And so in order to do the work smart, I think we do need to open up the CIP. Thank you.
Maria?
Option 3 sounds most favorable to me and allows us to have a more thoughtful process. I also have a strong interest in opening up the climate investment plan and giving that a second shot to, increase funding towards certain strategic programs and areas where community programs could directly benefit.
Alicia? Alicia, we can't hear you. Still can't hear you. And it shows that you're unmuted. Let me go to Michael and we'll come back to you.
My thoughts are really disjointed around this. I am definitely an option 3 person. I guess I think that communities still know how best to use funds and how best to serve their own communities, as opposed to government. I understand why that City Hall has not done a good job of forecasting and budgeting for their own programs and for their own departments, and that they are hurting from funding. And we haven't talked about if community orgs are in the same boat. I'm sure community orgs forecast and finance and project their budgets much better than the city does. I have no question about that. But are there any orgs out there that are hurting like the city is for more funding? We haven't been talking about that, so I think that's part of the discussion. I also worry a little bit that PCEF's getting siloed in City Hall, and is losing some sight of community-based organizations and the communities that PCEF was originally supposed to serve, being kind of part of city government now, and becoming closer and closer to city government, and maybe farther and farther away from community. And I like that we're changing the way that the city does business, and hopefully we have some effect on that. I don't think that was our charge to change how the city does business. I'm glad we're doing it. That's a nice bonus, and I think that's definitely for the better. But that wasn't our charge. So I would definitely be on option 3, for having some more time to have more collaborative proposals, see how the city wants to use this. We're talking 1.3 billion, and we're still talking 200,000 to community or 200 million to community organizations, and now I guess in total $1.1 billion to city. That just seems real lopsided, and I understand staffing and capacity and all those things, but it's if I was a community, I am a community member, but if I was not on the committee here and looking at this, I would be very disappointed in how the funding has washed out.
Alicia?
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry about that. I recognize a lot of the concerns that my fellow committee members have already shared. I also am trying to be cognizant of the argument that our city council members and the bureaus are making, that the programs that they have brought forward are in many ways beneficial to community organizations, and things like the tree planting are arguably best implemented by city bureaus because of the scale or the timeline. And I'm concerned about the rapid nature of what we've been asked to do, but I'm also concerned about delaying the allocation of funds to the point that there are critical services that are not going to be provided that need these stopgap funds. So honestly, I'm torn between the options. Hearing the otherwise, I think, consensus on option 3, I don't really see any other way forward. So I will support that.
Ramses, I'll go to you, and then Faith, you have a question, and after your question, Faith, Sam asks for 10 minutes remaining to move into some final discussions. So Ramses?
I think I'm personally at a 2 or 3, but I'll say I think yeah, again, just want to echo the comments everyone's made. I'm supportive of finding in this process here as we think about what we can streamline or update our application process, be responsive there, while also promoting collaboration. So I'll pause there and just want to echo all the comments I've heard so far.
Faith?
Tracy, I'm sorry, it was an errant hand raise. I'm all good to move on.
Oh, all right. Sam?
Okay. All right, folks. Thank you. What we'll do is, leading into your meeting on the 28th, we'll continue to work on some different ideas and approaches around how you all can consider proposals heading into the fall bump, and we'll give you all another go at talking through this, so that way it can you all have the space to think through how do all these pieces come together. So we'll work on that and come back on the 28th. And then I think separate from that, we'll work on just teasing out and scheduling what does it look like. Probably Paul, Alicia, and for D'Angelo, for our newest members on the committee, both to get a little familiar with our prior grant making, so that way we can start talking through with the committee what has changed, what hasn't changed, so that we can make sure you all are tracking as you all are hearing feedback. It's important you all are also able to speak to the why. And so we'll do that so we can have that conversation at a future date. But aside from that, more importantly is just that there is other committee work, and as busy as we've kept you in these past few meetings, we've got both subcommittees and work groups that we need to be quickly identifying folks that are willing to participate in these spaces. And so we wanted to both capture and flag some of the ones that near term we're going to be coming back to you all potentially ideally in the next meeting for some of these, to identify committee liaisons or subcommittees, so that we can continue and move and continue to do some of the committee's business. And so some of the near-term needed assignments are, we will need a recruitment subcommittee to evaluate proposals for Michael's replacement. And then we will need work groups for the strategic program members, liaisons, to participate on the work groups for strategic program number 8. This is focused on equitable tree canopy. We've currently got a recruitment out for that, and there's seats that are held for a PCEF committee member on that body, as well as an urban forestry commission member. And so we want folks to think about that. That body hasn't been pulled together yet, so the scheduling, the meeting cadence, and sort of the way this committee member ultimately works with that body is ultimately to be designed by the initial liaison and teasing that out. So there's a fair amount of room, but it is still a body of work that is critical and important, and has a tremendous amount of community interest. And then secondly, within the climate investment plan, we also identified strategic program 15. This is the $20 million set aside that was intended for our local match for federal climate and equity funding opportunities. And within that, we identified a work group structure that was going to be comprised of PCEF, BPS Climate, Office of Management and Finance, as well as our government relations staff that would be reviewing on a rapid timeline, would be reviewing requests for match from city bureaus. So as city bureaus are applying for federal funding, many times they want to apply for a match. This is part of the local match, and this work group would evaluate those and provide those match letters, and then subsequently, if awarded the funding, would review the greater details of the proposals afterwards. So that's just another piece. And so it's going to, I think it's an ongoing need to participate in that body, at least until that funding is depleted. And it's folks that, are willing to jump in and review proposals. And we're working on I will have, if folks have questions on those, I'll turn it over to James. We're working on the template for bureaus to apply for funding there. But as you think about those, I just wanted to contextualize that there are other work groups. We mentioned the first two on this slide here, but then eventually we will be working on a transportation decarbonization work group. And while recruitment subcommittee is one of the subcommittees that comes and goes, meaning that folks participate, you're called on for somewhere between 3 to 5 meetings, you review proposals, you make a recommendation to the fuller committee. That one comes and goes. And then we also have performance and evaluation subcommittee that we need to bring back and check in on folks and whether they're still interested in participating there as we bring back that work. Other potential committee work and engagement areas and opportunities are just participating on our grant RFP review panel. Thanks you to those who've agreed to participate. It's a really great way to see the proposals and get a sense for the questions we ask, how we ask them, why we ask them, and how we differentiate across projects. Then there's our contract RFP review panels. We're going to have many RFPs that we're going to push out for program administrators, and so those will be other opportunities where we'll call in committee members. And then we'll also have liaison roles as part of the recommendation last week, as part of the annual review of Bureau progress reports. And so we'll have at least liaison roles that we'll see committee members to review annual budgets and performance reports for these various bureaus, but BES, Portland Water Bureau, Bureau of Hydroelectric Project, Bureau of Transportation, Housing Bureau, Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, Office of Management and Finance. So not to say that different people need to be on each one of those, but those are, we will need liaisons for each of those, and we'll start to define what those are going to look like later in the year. So this is just to mentally get your head around the different opportunities, and wanted to start flagging those for you all. And at least we'll come back to you all next week, and between in the next couple of weeks, we'll be checking in to see about the recruitment subcommittee, equitable tree canopy subcommittee, and then the federal funding matching work group.
Are there any questions or comments for Sam? Megan?
Well, it's not necessarily directly responding to this, but I just didn't know if this was our last call for comments. So maybe I'll wait to see if somebody wants to directly respond to this.
Megan, go ahead. I don't see any more, any hands raised.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, thank you, committee members, because Sam has laid out what could be quite a big portfolio of work for all, but hopefully collectively. So that's exciting. And Sam, I will follow up with you on the tree canopy stuff. And then I just also wanted to flag, Paul, I'm really bummed you won't be at our meeting on the 28th, and if that's true of anybody else. So please, I'll reach out to you. I'd love to get your thoughts as much as possible before. I know being in the deliberation is different than saying something in advance, but anyway, I'm gonna miss you at that. And then Alicia, just to your point, I don't think we I don't want to feel like we landed on a decision tonight. So like, I think we're still in deliberation process. I heard some interest in possibly it too. Anyway, I just wanted to say that I think we're still mid deliberation so that we haven't actually landed on a decision yet. So, and I'm happy to hear from folks in between if you have thoughts about shaping the agenda for our next meeting. And I'm sure Renfees would also be available for that. Not to speak for you, Renfees, but.
Since I got called out, yes, I will be available.
Okay. Well, what I will just say is thank you. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of work, and I think we're always going to be operating from behind and catching up on the body of work that we have ahead of us. But it's important work. This is really important work, and you all are contributing to that, and just really appreciate all your time in showing up to these meetings and sharing your thoughts and feedback and being ears in the community. I mean, that is your role, and it's wonderful to hear that. And I also at the same end really encourage you all that as you have direct questions, specific questions, reach out and let us know. You know, you may not get the answer you like, but we can always provide insights on probably a lot of the dynamics that are playing out. And so we'll look forward to our follow-up meetings and scheduling more. And just thank you again for everything.
All right, everyone, thank you. And for members of the public who attended this evening, thank you as well. And again, we'll see everyone February 28th. And Sam, I just want to verify if that's Zoom or hybrid. My calendar shows Zoom, but I want to confirm that.
Correct. It is Zoom. It falls on a Wednesday, and we were not able to secure our usual places. So that is Zoom.
All right. February 28th via Zoom, 6 to 8 o'clock. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thanks for all the hard work. Bye.
Thank you.